네, 코리안 마이스 엑스포 2020에 오신 여러분 환영합니다. 올해 엑스포의 컨퍼런스 부문 진행을 맡은 이주희입니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 오늘부터 이틀간 진행될 컨퍼런스는 코로나19 이후 마이스 산업의 전망이라는 주제로 열립니다. 코로나 팬데믹으로 인해 전 세계 마이스업계 종사자들께서 정말 힘들고 어려운 시간을 보내고 계시는데요. 이렇게 비대면이 일상화되면서 디지털 사회로의 급속히 전환이 되고 있습니다. 세계 마이스업계가 이러한 상황 속에서 어떻게 준비하고 또 어떤 변화를 해야 하는지 국내외 IT 전문가와 또 마이스 관계자들을 모시고 함께 이야기를 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. 컨퍼런스는 크게 총 3개의 세션으로 구성이 되어 있습니다. 잠시 후 시작할 첫 번째 세션의 주제는 IT로 확장성을 도모하는 마이스 산업입니다. 멀리 해외에 계신 두 분의 발표자를 영상으로 만나보실 텐데요. 두 분 모두 글로벌 플랫폼 기업인 구글과 또 마이크로소프트에서 트래블 부문을 총괄하고 계신 그야말로 최신 트렌드의 선두에 계신 분들입니다. 발전하는 IT 기술이 마이스 산업과 만나 어떤 가능성을 보여줄 수 있는지 생생한 현장의 이야기를 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 마이크로소프트 트래블 글로벌 총괄인 에릭 베일리 님이 지나하는
Travel,
미팅
VenueSource, and
솔루션을
Payments of
주제로
Microsoft,
해주시고요.
who's going to
또
be talking
곧이어
under the theme of
구글
evolving meetings,
아시아태평양에서
which will be
관광
followed
및 버티컬
by the
리서치
sector lead
섹터를
of Travel and
총괄하는
Vertical Search
헐마이오니
APAC
조이님이
at Google,
관광
Ms.
산업에서의
Hermione Joye,
디지털
who will be talking under the
트랜스포메이션이라는
theme of
제목으로
tourism industry's
발표를
digital
이어가시겠습니다.
transformation.
오늘 컨퍼런스 영상은 홈페이지와 또 유튜브를 통해서
We will be meeting
실시간
our
중계되고 있습니다. 혹시
presenters
놓치시는 분들이
online.
있다라고
They have
하면요,
sent us
나중에
videos
홈페이지를
of their
통해서 그
speeches,
영상을
which
보실
will be
수가
uploaded
있습니다.
to the website
네,
later
그럼
on,
지금부터 첫
if you
번째
have not
세션을
caught it now.
시작하도록
With that, we would like
하겠습니다.
to begin the first session.
Hello, my name is Eric Bailey, and I manage the Microsoft Global Travel Program, Meetings Planning Program, as well as our payment program. In 2019, we spent more than $1 billion in these areas. We had 500,000 trips, over 1,000 meetings, and 100,000 cardholders. Things were going great, as I think for a lot of you also. Now, in 2020, we've seen those numbers drop by 97%. We're seeing very few meetings and events. We're seeing almost no travel. We've seen huge cutbacks in this area due to COVID-19. So it's been a very, very tough year in this space for us to understand a better way to connect with our people, with our employees, and with our customers. So it's going to take us a long time to get back to where we were in 2019, but I think it's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen through innovation and bringing together travel technology, as well as some of the old stuff that we've known in the meeting space for a long time. Now, Korea has done a great job of managing COVID-19. Your cases are so much more under control than what we're used to in the US. And so I think you're getting back to more and more meetings, and I applaud the people that have brought together meetings in 2020. I wish we had seen more of that, because I really miss getting out there and meeting my peers, my friends, and my coworkers. So I think that Korea is in a great position to be a destination in the future and today moving forward. So with this, I think the hardest part for me has been that what we always thought was essential. We thought that travel and being face-to-face was essential. And now, one of the things I've found is that products can be launched. Companies can be purchased and acquired. Employees can be hired all without travel. So that's the part that it's time for us to get over. But I think what we know is that face-to-face is missing, and that we need more of that. And maybe one meeting can be skipped or one trip, but as soon as we skip 2 or 3 or 4, it gets harder and harder for us. So what we need to do is bring all of these things together. And I think what we can do is we will have better meetings. There'll be more sustainable meetings, and they'll be more inclusive for more people. And that's really what we're looking for in this space. So it's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of new opportunity moving forward. I want to share a video with you of some of the stuff that Microsoft is working on as we move forward into this digital age of meetings and events. And some of this is purely digital, some of it is hybrid, and I'm going to talk to you about a little bit of both of those. Here, I'm going to share a video with you.
Hello, I'm Bob Bajan, and I'm Corporate Vice President of Global Events here at Microsoft. And over the last 6 months, we've gone on a literal digital transformation of all of our event work into the virtual and digital world. We're thrilled to be partnering with CTA to produce CES this year based on everything we've learned over the last 6 months. And here's the interesting thing. These events are incredibly effective. 6,200 people joined us for Microsoft Build last year. 197,000 of them joined us for Microsoft Build this year. So the scale is crazy larger, and it's much more inclusive globally. Last year at Build, 80% of our population was from the United States. This year at Build, 70% of our population was from around the world. So the inclusivity is extraordinary. And the efficacy is surprisingly powerful. Not only do we get more people to these events, using the digital medium, we connect with them faster and more effectively. When you think about making the change or the digital transformation into virtual events, there are really three big things that we would say. First, this notion of not translating the event that you did in the real world and reinventing that event and experience made for this medium. The second thing that maybe is even more important than the first is understanding that what you're making is not a theatrical presentation, the way we all think of live events, presenting to a live audience.
How do we even get started?
But instead, a cinematic relationship with the frame that creates a one-on-one conversation with every member of your audience at the same time. And then the third thing is that events in the virtual world serve as a much more effective kick to the flywheel for the behaviors you want the rest of the year, not just at the event itself. There's no question that there will be some kind of return to live events. All of us recognize that there is a unique component to human beings interacting face-to-face and in person, and that'll never go away. But what has changed is we believe that the digital work that we're doing today becomes the centerpiece of even the live experiences that return tomorrow.
So as you can see, technology is advancing quickly. Our CEO said that we did 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months following the initial COVID pandemic. So what we're going to see is this leveraging of the existing resources that we have, the hotels, the convention centers, the airports, things like that. All of those will be pulled together and tied together with technology. And I'll give you a good example. In 1936, that was the first Olympics to be displayed on television. There were only 200 television sets in the entire world at that point. And so we were able to get the power of TV to get beyond the stadium. And so if you think of that, that started out in a single location and spreading out. And that's what we're going to see more and more. As you heard Bob Bajan just say, we had an event that went from 6,500 people to 197,000. Imagine if you can reach 30 times the people. So, and I'll ask a question to each of you. Who would say that it's better to go to the Olympics in person? I do. I think it would be amazing to go to the Olympics in person. But who thinks we should only have the Olympics for people that are there in person? Only the people with the resources and the time to get there, and leave everybody else out. I don't think anybody thinks that's the case, but I think we've really treated meetings like that in the past. So I want to go into a few different steps of where we see meetings and where we see this evolution happening. And so if I start out with the traditional in-person meeting. So with this, and we're all familiar with this, we've all been to trade shows and big conference halls and hotels and things like that. With that, you can connect with a lot of people, right? You have the opportunity to meet new people that you've never met before. But it can also be a little bit hard to navigate. It can be a little overwhelming. For the person that doesn't know anybody there and who's trying to meet new people, but nobody knows them, nobody can read their name badge, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So there's very little context for the person near you. We don't know anything about those people. So you might walk by your best prospect without ever knowing it. You know, you may You may be able to be there, you may spend a ton of time and never meet any of the people that you really meant to meet, because there's no true way to connect those people in person without asking everybody their name, their company, their job, and all of those things. So there's some real drawbacks, I think, to the traditional in-person meetings that we can improve upon. Now, the next one that we're going to look at is the traditional webinar. So this is something that we've all done. They're pretty easy to pass basic content from one to many. They're low cost, a broad span, and the technology is pretty easy. So it's got some real benefits there. Now, however, the presenter has zero feedback, whereas in a truly digital event, there will be more feedback. The attendees often can't even see each other. There's no networking. One of the biggest benefits that we see for people going to events. There's limited engagement because the people are just sort of sitting and listening. And as I think we all know, there's the high distraction of people maybe sitting at home, the dog is barking, the kids are there, or email is calling to them. So all of these things can take people out of a webinar where they're sitting at home or in the office. And we want to keep that engagement up. Now, the next one is what a lot of us have seen in the last 6 to 9 months. And this is a moderated video conference. So think of things like Microsoft Teams or Zoom. Now, with this, you're able to have conversations, not just one to many, right? Not just the presenter speaking out and providing some content, but all of those people can now connect also. You can have breakout rooms. You can have one-on-one conversations. You can have chat as the entire event is going on. I presented at a conference a couple of months ago, and I could actually see people asking questions. I could change my presentation based on the questions that they had in real time. So it was a much different experience as opposed to preparing something ahead of time. Now with this, you have that peer-to-peer connections. You have other things like transcription and translation. So as Bob Bajan was mentioning earlier, you can have 70% of the people coming from outside of your home country. And all of that can be translated, all of it in real time. Huge benefits that we've never seen in person. Now, there are some drawbacks. Meeting new people can be a challenge. It's easy if you see somebody that you know, but to meet that person can be a challenge. So we need to figure out new ways to meet people. And you'll see things like trivia contests and games and things like that where people are trying to get more interaction. Engagement can be challenging, right? You might have some people very engaged and some people sort of sitting back and listening. I think we're all familiar with the sorry I was on mute when somebody tries to talk and they forget that they were on mute. And you're still dealing with some of those at home or at the office distractions. So I think it's got a lot of things that we can learn from this, but it's still not the perfect experience. And there's going to be a different experience for everybody, I think, too. Now, the one that I think is most exciting is the distributed meeting. And so this is where attendees might be in multiple different locations. And I'll give you an example of what this would be like. Imagine the World Cup. And the World Cup is not just a single event, but you might have a lot of people in a single stadium at one moment. But now imagine outside of that, you've got people meeting in a bar. You've got people, maybe a group of friends at home. You've got somebody watching individually at home, maybe some people sneaking watching on their phone while they're at work. But all of these people can engage. So they're engaging in different ways, but they're really bringing that meeting together. And they can have an in-person connection even at a very, very large event that you might have 1 billion people attending. You also can attend it in different time zones at different times, right? You can record it. You can watch part of it. You can see highlights. You can see statistics, all sorts of other things that you can bring in that if you imagine the traditional meeting where it just happens one time at one place, this offers a whole lot more than that. And you can really expand it across space and time. I think also this leverages a lot of the existing resources that we have today, right? It could mean a hotel room here, it could mean a ballroom there, a convention center there, and a stadium or a auditorium somewhere else. So we're able to bring all of these things together. The other thing this does that's great is people are still going, they're getting out, they're able to engage. They've got less CO2, they might not have to travel as far. Maybe an East Coast meeting and a West Coast meeting. Right? Maybe you've got one in Tokyo, one in Seoul. So you're able to do this. It's a smaller carbon footprint, which I think is great. but yet people are able to get out and they're able to experience other people, get away from their desk, be able to focus on things. This is also going to bring down T&E expenses, which, I mean, right now we're looking at nearly $100 million a month of reduced T&E across Microsoft. So this is something that we're really able to potentially leverage to invest in some of these other meetings. So I think that's going to be one of the big challenges as you look at the people putting together meetings, and you look at the total spend of the attendees and the people going. It's going to be a challenge to take some of those budgets and convert them. Now, some of the drawbacks, it's a little bit more expensive because you might need multiple producers. You might need, obviously, multiple cameras. People will have their own devices, and you'll need to have shared devices. It requires that T&E reallocation, and I think also that the technology must be maintained. So this is where I think we're going to see within the infrastructure of the conference centers, the hotels and things like that, there is going to be a technology side. They're going to need to find the right technology partners that can bring all of these things together, because we will be living in a completely different world where that technology will be everywhere. I want to bring you through one more example here. This is the in-person digitally enhanced meeting. Now, it's familiar, in-person experience. We all know what it's like. You walk in, there's a lot of people. You might see your friends, you might see some new people. I think this is great. Now, one of the things that we're going to take out is the chance. So the chance, if you look at the diagram here of somebody that knows somebody on the other side of the room, but they couldn't see them. Let's make it so that they know that person is there. Let's help those people connect digitally so they can meet in person. So we want to replace chance with intent. So now you might want to be there in person, right? Just like we used with the Olympics or the World Cup. It's great to go in person, but you know what? Everybody can't do that. So how do we let those people that can't attend virtually? Now, some of those people might just not be comfortable going, maybe for health reasons. Maybe they have certain disabilities that make it difficult for them to do that. Maybe they don't have the budget or the time to go, but we want to bring those people in, right? That's how you make that meeting from 6,400 to 197,000. And we still keep those people that want to be there. We still keep that value of the in-person meeting. So it's a richer experience. Now, some of those people attending remotely, we need to figure out ways for them to connect better. And one way, right, we'll use phones, we've got our computers, we'll use laptops. And I think those will become more visible and available at conferences. You'll see more screens where people are meeting with people. And you'll see more of what you see at home today when you're sitting there looking at your screen with video and audio. You'll see places and breakouts within hotels and conference centers to do that, so that you can meet with somebody that's there in person or somebody that's somewhere else remotely. All of these things, bringing them together. Now, some of the drawbacks, we're going to see this cultural shift that it is still, I think, it's still awkward to look at say, for example, I look at somebody, I scan their QR code to find out about their history, right? I might look on LinkedIn and find out maybe where they worked, maybe where we had some common past. Now, it's very easy for us to do that today in the Zoom meeting or Teams meeting. So I think we're seeing an evolution of that cultural shift. I don't know what it'll be like in person, but it's definitely going to be something that we're going to look at. Now, there's still remote engagement. We need to figure out how do we connect to those people that are in other places. And I think also with this, you're going to see that CO2 footprint increase, those T&E budgets increase. And so there's going to be some challenges when we look at those, because there is a huge focus that we're seeing across the travel space today that is focusing on sustainable travel, which might mean less travel and it might mean closer travel. I don't think it means no travel. I don't think it means we're not going face to face, but we're going to see a lot more pressures on that in the future. And we see that every day as we go out and do things like purchasing sustainable air fuel. It's not cheap, but it's the right thing to do. And we're going to see more and more companies doing that. So the opportunity here is to be more inclusive. It's to be more connected, more sustainable, more intentional, more engaging, and just as human as the meetings that we've had and planned in the past, right? All that stuff that we loved to do last year that we're all missing right now, we'll be able to do all of that again, but it's going to be in a different way. And so a few things I want to just close with here. These meetings are going to be inclusive, not exclusive. It's not about making people only get to share when they come on site. It's about how do we bring people in? How do we bring those other views in? How do you win fans of your products and your company without them necessarily being there? And how do you make it so it's so compelling for people to come that you will get your core fans will be there, right? So it's that inclusive, not exclusive. It's intention and not chance. So everything I think is going to be planned. You're going to know ahead of time who's going to a meeting. You're going to know when you're going to meet them. You're going to know how you're going to meet them. I think we've all gone through that experience where you to say, oh, I'll meet you down in the lobby. There's nowhere to meet. You're walking around, you're looking for chairs. The opportunity for the hotels, convention centers, arenas to have places for people to meet for 15 or 20 minutes in a quiet area, an area that you can book ahead of time, that you can plan on. So it's not hoping you run into the right person, it's knowing you're going to run into the right person. And then it's having the right place to set up to meet with that person. I think all of that's a great opportunity to take some of this space, and this can be hotel rooms, this can be bars or areas around the bar, even inside, outside, all of those, and convert them into something that might even be revenue generating for some of our partners. And it's going to be engagement, not just presence. 1,000 people sitting in a dark room listening to something that they don't care about is not really engagement. Just because they're there doesn't mean that it's successful. What you want is those people talking. You want those people communicating together. You want those people linking, and it's going to be technology that's linking them together so that they can have shared experiences. They can have shared goals. They can have shared engagement. And so they might be talking, right? And they might be having a chat on the side. We've all seen it. There's people chatting on the side as there's a video call going on. But those are people that are engaged. And what we want to see is that engagement, because simply just being there, simply just going to an event is not going to be enough anymore. You have to be engagement. You have to be in the crowd, not just sitting there, but in the crowd cheering. That's what we want to see. And with that, thank you. And I'd like to take some questions and answers. I know that we've got some prepared here.
네, 베일리 총괄님 강연 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you very much for
네,
your
지금
presentation,
연사께서
Eric
말씀하신
Bailey.
것처럼 저희가 몇
As we
가지
just
질문을
heard, we
드리면서
do have
계속해서
some prepared
이야기를
questions
이어나가
in
보도록
advance, and we'd like to
하겠습니다.
ask them to
네,
Eric
그러면
now.
첫 번째
This
질문입니다.
is the first question
네,
we would
베일리
like to ask
총괄께서는
Eric
현재
Bailey.
기술이 빠르게 발전을
You
하고
mentioned that
있으며
there is
컨벤션
this rapid
센터나
advancement in
또
technology,
이벤트
that with these
베뉴에도
convention centers and
빠르게
event
적용이 될
venues,
것이라고
that these
하셨는데요.
technologies are going to
이러한
be
기술은 또
applied
마이스
to
산업
these
전반에도
areas very
영향을
soon.
미칠 것
And obviously,
같습니다.
these technologies are
최근
going
몇 년
to
동안
impact the MICE
총괄님께서
industry
혹시
overall.
주목하고
What
있는
are
기술이
some of
있다면
the
어떤 것들이 있을까요?
huge digital technologies
Just
that
if
you've
you look
seen
at
in
the
the
basic
past?
things that people are carrying all the time, their phone and their computer, right? We're seeing these things connecting more and more and linking into the internet everywhere. So that instead of going to somebody and having a business card, you have literally all the information about their past work experience. So bringing this information is a huge opportunity. Now, we're also seeing a lot more in terms of like dynamic whiteboards. So you're able to do whiteboarding sessions remotely on your computer, or even a virtual, maybe a big Surface Hub or something like that. So we're seeing new ways that you can share your information and that you can interact with other people around the world. And the other thing, what we will see, I think, is more of these in smaller locations, right? As I was saying, in the hotel lobby, maybe a small meeting room, a breakout room. We're talking to hotel chains about how we can use their hotel rooms in a different way, leverage technology and screens and things like that in those rooms so that you have more meeting space. So it's a combination of the technology and the space and bringing those together.
네, 디지털 분야가 점차 더 중요해진다라는
Yes,
말씀을
the
해주신
digital
것
space
같은데요.
is going to
네,
be
이런
more
맥락에
important going
맞춰서
forward.
마지막
Now, given
질문을
that
하나 더
context, I would like to
드리도록
ask you one last
하겠습니다.
question.
네, 마이스 산업이 디지털화를 이루었을 때
When
어떤
the MICE
일들이
industry is
가능할까요? 이
digitalized,
부분에 대해서
what
좀
are some
많은
of the
분들이 기대를 하고
potentials
있는 것
that you foresee? I
같습니다.
think that there are
이런
many
디지털
people who are
트랜스포메이션을
looking at the
만들어가는 과정에서
possibilities of the digital
우리가
transformation in
염두에
the
둬야
MICE
할
industry.
점은
What are
어떤
some of the
것들이 있을까요?
considerations that we have
특별히
to
관심을 가져야 될
give
것이 어떤
in
것들이
the
있을까요?
digitalization of the
I
MICE
mean, I think the
industry?
key things to keep in mind as we go to more of a digital world is the value of that in-person has to become greater. So there's still going to be value attending remotely, but there's got to be even greater value of those people attending in person, right? Which means they're going to come away with really, really good connections. They're going to have an experience that maybe they'll never forget. It's going to be an experience that's built around networking. Because if I look at most of the events I've attended in the past, or even events that we've hosted, networking is always sort of seen as a thing that you happen to do on the side, right? It's the time in between meetings when you talk to somebody. It's the dinner or the after dinner conversation. Why have we left those all as just random things on the side when that's the real reason that people went to meetings and events? I think you're going to see those are going to be the primary reasons why people are going to go to these. They're going to go because it's like, there's a way that I can connect with the 10 people in the world that I want to connect with the most. And it's going to be a meaningful connection. And I think that's where you're going to see a big difference, is that it's just going to be this, it's going to be very, very intentional. That's the only word I can think of. It's going to be intentional, and it's going to be a great experience built around what I need and what the people I want to meet need.
네, 계속해서 교류와 또 의사소통이 중요한 것 같습니다.
This going forward, I think that
글로벌
exchange
총괄님의
and
고견
communication are still
감사드리면서요.
very important. I would
마지막으로
like to
혹시 저희
thank Erica for his
참가자들한테 하고
insight.
싶으신 말이
Do you
있으실까요?
have any last words for our participants?
Thank you for having me today. And I hope to visit the Korea Mice Expo very soon in person.
네, 저희도 베일리 총괄님을
Yes,
빠른
we
시일 내에
would
또
like
한국에서
to
뵐
host you
수
here
있기를
in
바라겠습니다.
Very soon.
네, 자 다음은 마이크로소프트에 이어서 구글에서
So following on
발표를
from Microsoft,
해주시겠습니다.
we're going to invite a
여러분,
speaker
큰
from
박수로
Google.
구글
Please
아시아 태평양
welcome
관광 및
Hermione
버티컬
Joye,
리서치 섹터의
who is the
헐마이오니
Sector
조이
Lead of
총괄님을
Travel and
모시도록
Vertical
하겠습니다.
Search, APAC, for Google.
Hello, KME 2020. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon. I am Hermione, Sector Lead for Travel and Vertical Search in APAC. Our team represents the travel industry within Google, and we are based in Singapore. I'm here to speak to you today about how the tourism, and more specifically MICE industry, has rapidly undergone digital transformation due to COVID. But let me start off with a quick story. This is a photo of me and my family in January of this year. This was our last family vacation, visiting my home and our family in Sydney as my mat leave came to an end. I am a planner and a passionate traveller, and 2020 was going to be my year of travel. I had the entire year mapped out, booked and paid for, and that's no joke. And if you had told me that this would be my last trip in over 2 months, or 10 months, sorry, or should I say 320 days, who's counting, I would have said that's impossible. Forward to right now, living here in Singapore or in the new normal. Never in my lifetime would I have dreamt that a virus or anything for that matter would bring the world to a halt, and so literally. We haven't seen a global crisis like this since the Spanish flu of 1918. And I share this story because COVID has not only caused a black swan, but also caused in the way people operate their daily lives. From the rapid education, consumption, and acceleration of digital to the latest must-have accessory, the mask, COVID has made safety, the new brand, and digital the primary communication platform. We have entered a new and daunting world of the unknown, but with it becomes many opportunities. We just need to adapt, be resilient, and innovate. First of all, there is good news on the horizon. Despite the global pandemic, we're seeing a strong and growing pent-up demand for travel in APAC. It's just presenting itself in different ways. First, by pent-up demand, which is someone like me sitting here in Singapore, desperately watching the news, waiting to understand when the next travel leisure bubble might open up. And two, via domestic travel. In fact, we've actually seen a huge shift in consumer confidence when it comes to travel. 1 in 2 APAC consumers are now eager to travel. And this is a big change from earlier than this year, when consumers said that they would wait and see before they made a booking, to now they are saying they want to travel now, even despite border restrictions. As a starting point to enter into APAC region, you need to understand that it's incredibly diverse tapestry, and that to be successful in this region, regardless of your business archetype, it requires segmentation and localization at scale. But COVID has brought about a new layer of complexity for travelers, be it business or leisure. And for the purpose of today, I want to talk to you about the three major pivots. Firstly, consumers assume flexibility when it comes to any travel booking they make. This is a norm and the starting point. Secondly, safety is critical. The way you communicate and present your safety measures will be the defining difference into the way consumers will engage with your brand. Safety is the new brand equity and loyalty. And thirdly, people want to travel more locally. They want to travel also incredibly directly. They would prefer to travel on a direct flight, bus or train than make multiple stops to get their destination. And they would prefer that their travel is approximately 3 to 4 hours from their destination. These are the three consumer changes, but the biggest global change is how rapidly people have accelerated in the digital landscape. Over the past 10 months, the digital acceleration has been dramatic. Take Southeast Asia, for example, where now over 70% of people are online, and we have over 40 million new users online this year alone. And the trend says that 9 out of 10 of these new users are here to stay. They plan to continue to use digital post-pandemic as their primary platform. So that's a good thing to note, and something that you guys should be thinking about as you build out your digital strategy and your business strategy. In order to understand consumers a little bit more, we engaged on consumer research with Kantar in the China market, as it's been the market to come most quickly out of this pandemic. And what we saw was a new desire or demand for online access clearly come through in our study, with 70% of Chinese travelers expected to book travel online more post-COVID, and that this is a trend consistent with all travel product types. We also see that this digital acceleration is sticky, with 94% of digital service consumers saying that they plan to continue to use the online platform and more regularly. This is an incredibly important thing to keep in mind as you build out your MICE strategies, as your customers are now eager to engage with you differently and are expecting you to evolve with their demands. Think an end-to-end seamless digital experience from booking through to check-in. Think contactless check-in to events and COVID testing. It's my personal guess that people will almost expect to be able to access MICE events regardless of where they are in the world virtually, if they need to. So what does this mean for everyone today, and how can you act on it? First thing what that comes to mind is personalization. In this COVID world, for businesses and events, now more than ever, people are more comfortable online and are spending more time and money there. So you need to make sure that your platforms have good online experiences and are meeting the customer's expectations. Secondly, the new way of doing business and getting business is safety. Safety, safety, safety. We've witnessed how safety is key criteria, but it's also going to make the defining difference whether people to come to your MICE events or book with you. And it's all about data-driven planning. Today in the travel space, more and more people are asking and turning online to ask questions about the places they visit, the quarantine rules, and the things they can do on staycation. Because quite frankly, it has become incredibly confusing. People want access to data, and in this new normal, with changes happening on a daily basis, it's important not only to be able to give your customers access to data, but also to ensure that you and your team are staying across the trends, as it's the only way you'll succeed. So let's talk about how you can do this and utilize some technologies such as cloud and AI to give your customers great, flexible, and personalized experiences at every touch point within your organization. While expectations remain equal during the current pandemic when it comes to the while expectations remain equal during the current pandemic, we've seen a change and increase by a large amount in terms of what consumers want from their customer services. In fact, in travel, we've seen that 60% of people want easier access to self-serving solutions. We've also seen that 64% of them want real-time assistance, and this goes for events as well. And 75% of them would prefer a personal interaction. But note, this doesn't have to be a human one, it just needs to be a personalized one. Thus, for MICE trade events, you need to think about 1, how you provide excellent customer service affordably, and 2, how you promote operational efficiency while still remaining relevant and sticky. You need to think about how your customer can access also this type of technology at scale. Good thing to note is that we have some happy travel customers within the industry who are already seeing positive results after working with the Google Cloud solutions. Take AirAsia, for example, who use Dialogflow to streamline operations and reduce costs. You can do similar things with the MICE industry events. GoIbibo used our maps and cloud services to make their customer experience more useful and intelligent. And ClearTrip used our cloud to customize their experience for travelers and help highlight the safety information. So think about how you can use the new tech, AI, chatbots that are coming out to help streamline your services, and then how you can display them at your major events. So I talked about personalization and the ability to do this at scale utilizing cloud platforms and AI. Let me now talk about the new way of doing business. First of all, there's good news for everyone in the room. Business travel is still in demand. And we see that people are still open to travel for MICE events, with nearly 40% of people in China saying that if it was possible, they would travel for MICE. So long-term, MICE events are not going anywhere. At least that's my personal prediction. Though there is some uncertainty around traveling for events or conferences. And the biggest concern, you guessed it, is safety, due to the gathering of large crowds of people and the multiple locations that people are coming from. Having spoken to many of my clients in the past, MICE remains critical for businesses moving forward, not only because they're a great place to educate industry and also network, which people miss tremendously, but they are also the place where innovations come to life and are scaled successfully and showcased. So you need to think about how we can ignite the appetite and create comfort and support for MICE events. If we have a look at what the Chinese traveler is saying about this, and as industry leaders, we do need to take a huge role in shifting this positive mindset, we can see that there are some obvious lessons to learn. First of all, make masks mandatory throughout meetings. Second of all, make sure that you're clearly displaying and executing on social distancing. And thirdly, test participants for COVID. It brings great comfort to people who are attending events to know that everyone there has been checked and is COVID free. But there are also some other examples of MICE innovations that may not seem so obvious. And this is one I personally really love. It's what Marriott did with their Safe Conference initiative and has really shown thought leadership. What they've done is set up a virtual site inspection and set it up so it reflects social distancing during the pre-event phase. They also have health checks on arrival and have individual F&B for each person versus doing major buffets. And finally, they've clearly displayed the efforts around disinfecting meeting rooms and equipment and the event space itself. Another example of industry leadership has come from the Singapore government, which has recently launched a pilot of initiatives to resume MICE events for up to 250, mixing the use of digital and physical mediums and having bespoke arrangements for each visitor. I actually had the pleasure, and we were fortunate enough to attend and speak at one of these wonderful events. And I can say it was truly comforting to see the great effort they took to make sure that social distancing was applied, and also the fact that we all must do COVID tests. These are the kind of industry leaderships that we need to continue to forge and innovate and test to reignite MICE travel. Now, let's just talk about finally the data-driven planning approach. COVID has made many things unclear and uncertain, but one thing that is crystal clear is the importance of staying up to date with trends. And major things that can affect the travel industry can happen overnight. This means that MICE event planners, you guys need to stay close to not only the macro trends, but also ensure that you have a data-driven approach to all your planning and business strategy. You also need to try and offer your consumers, event attendees, solutions and ways to ensure their business is also evolving and being data-driven in the decisions they make, so that they are easily able to distill information out there, ensuring that they're giving consumers or travelers a seamless and uncomplicated trip. So how can Google help? Well, firstly, we have Google Alerts. This is one of my favorite and most used products. It helps me stay close to information that is deemed relevant by me by triggering alerts to news articles on topics that I like. In a time like this, you can trigger alerts to better understand your local COVID conditions or how consumers are thinking about travel. You just need to type in your keywords so that you're most interested and then select how you'd like the information delivered to you, i.e. via email on a daily basis or once a week. Google Trends is also another great tool. For the purpose of today, what I did was demonstrate how you can use Google Trends to see the demand for MICE over time across 2 different countries. So this could help you to plan. What I did here today was compare Singapore to South Korea, Singapore being in red and South Korea in blue. You can also use Google Trends to find out what your target audience is, who they are, and also who else is interested in MICE events and what topics are also of interest to them, so that you can make your messaging to these MICE consumers more tailored and specific. So that is everything we have today, and it's been a pleasure to speak to you all. If I can leave you with just 3 tips, it's this. Make sure that you're creating a personal, digitalized experience end-to-end for your MICE customers. Make sure that you're adapting this new way of doing technology and putting safety front of mind. And finally, be data-driven and agile in your approach so that you can adapt to the changing needs of your customers. Thank you very much.
네, 헐마이오니 조이 총괄님
Thank you very
잘
much,
들었습니다.
Joy, for your
이번에도
presentation.
추가로 질문을 몇 개
So
드리면서
I have a few
관광 및
questions
또
for you.
마이스 산업의
We'll
변화에
try to
관한
look at the current
이야기를
status as well
이어가보도록
as the
하겠습니다.
outlook for
네,
the
그러면
MICE
첫
industry and travel
번째
industry. First of
질문입니다.
all,
네, 지금 조이 총괄님께서는
Now,
구글에서
you have
근무를
been
하고
working at Google
계시지만
for
또 그
quite some
이전에
time, but before
관광산업에서
that,
오랜 동안
you spent a
활동을
lot of time
해오셨습니다.
working at the
그
travel-related industries
누구보다도
as well.
디지털화가
And I'm
관광산업에
sure
미치는
you
영향에
feel
대해서
firsthand
잘
the
알고
impact
계실 것
digital is having
같습니다.
on travel and
코로나
tourism
팬데믹
industry.
이후
Now,
마이스
since
산업과 또
after
관광산업 분야에서는
COVID-19,
이
in the MICE industries
디지털화의
as well as travel
필요성과
industries,
또
we're
중요성이
seeing
대두가
an
되고 있습니다.
ever-increasing need for
오늘 이
digitization.
자리에는 전 세계 마이스
And today we're
업계
joined by various
관계자분들이
people
온라인 또
from the
오프라인으로
MICE industry, both
참여를 하고
on and
계시는데요.
offline,
이러한 디지털화를 하려는
in order to
기업이나
facilitate
기관들에게
digitization
어떤
at the
조언들을 해주실
businesses and
수 있을까요?
organizations.
어떤
What's the
이야기를
advice
해주실
that
수
you can give
있을까요?
to these companies?
Thank you for that question. It's a very good one. It's clear from today's presentation that consumers are shifting in digital. And this means that digital needs to be at the forefront of everything you do and how you build your business going forward. It's not an easy process, and it's something that can't happen overnight. But what I would do is encourage you to test and learn. So dip your toe into the water with digital and work out what best suits your business, and then start applying those learnings accordingly so that you can start to innovate and adapt. I'd also encourage you to be nimble and use platforms that are free, where you can upload content so that you can speak to your consumers in a digital voice, because no longer are consumers expecting movie cinema quality engagement from brands or events, that they're comfortable with the digital experience that is of that of home. And so, just testing and trialing is the best thing to really do. I'd also say just watch for what other people are doing and take learnings from them. So I gave you the example of Marriott. I think they've done a phenomenal job. I've seen what Singapore government's been doing with MICE, and work out what they're doing and choose the best of it and then apply it to what you're doing.
네, 그렇군요. 그러면 한 가지 질문을 더
So I
드리도록
have another
하겠습니다.
follow-up question for
이제
you.
디지털 트랜스포메이션이라고 하는
Now,
것은
we say
거스를 수
digital
있는
transformation. This is
대세
an irreversible
흐름인데요.
trend
마이스
indeed.
산업 혹은
And in the
비즈니스
MICE
이벤트
industries, as
분야에서
well as in the
가장
business
빠르게
event
디지털화가
area,
이루어지는
what are some of the
영역은
areas that
어떤
will become
영역이라고 생각을 하시는지요?
digitized
또
first?
구글에서 지금 트래블을 총괄하고 계시는데요.
And because you're
구글은
the sector
마이스
chief
비즈니스
for
트래블
Google,
분야에서
in
이러한
the MICE
디지털화를
business
위해
travel
어떤
area,
종류의
what are
서비스나
some of the
전략을
services or
가지고
strategies that
있는지요?
you have in place to
구체적인
promote
사례를 소개를
digitization? If you
해주시면
could give us some specific
감사하겠습니다.
examples, we would appreciate that very much.
So I think it's a two-part question. So the first is which is the area that's going to digitize the fastest for business and events. And I think that's really going to come down to people, how they engage with cloud platforms and how they are able to digitize their events. I think we've already seen a solid shift, but in events and consumers being comfortable with digital events, and now it's just how we capitalize that. In terms of the Google products and strategies that we have to offer to help MICE events, it comes down to cloud, our cloud platform, and the utilization of our tools. So the data-driven tools like Google Trends. So work apps to help you integrate chatbots or become more advanced with your communication to your consumers, so it's a seamless experience, enable you to have use the AI technology and your CRM systems to the complete capability would be the priority. And staying abreast of trends. One thing I can say for sure is that it's not one size fits all. So again, you need to test and learn, but be willing to take that leap of faith because the customer's already there. And I think that you'll have a good experience, and it doesn't have to be an expensive one. You can make simple tweaks and then and capitalize on that. And that will really shift your industry, your event for the better. We did an example, sorry, just one other thing was how Google's been doing it. We've done 2 examples recently. One, we did a Think Travel APAC event, and that was a 2-day event. And normally it was in-person 2-day event. We split it into 2 days, just 3 hours. And we allowed people to then watch it on demand for 2 weeks after it. And we saw a really great response. The only thing that people missed was the networking, and we tried to adapt by giving people calendar invites to network, and that worked to moderate success. The other thing we've done is with our brandcast on YouTube, we gave consumers a virtual experience instead of an in-person event. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the brandcast. And in doing so, we also allowed them to customize their experience. So we gave them playlists that they chose, which were their interests, and we also gave them podcasts on a consistent periodic basis to listen to, that was all tailored to their interests. And that had really good feedback across the APAC region.
네, 감사합니다.
So
디지털
thank you for that.
트랜스포메이션을 통해서 이제
Through
마이스
digital
업계가 앞으로
transformation, I
나아갈
believe
방향에
that the
대해서
MICE
생각해 볼 수
industry
있는 아주 유익한
really has a good,
시간이었습니다. 실질적인
direction
조언도
to
참 많이 해주셨는데요.
take
오늘
based
총괄님께서는
on the advice and
어떠셨는지 소감
recommendations
한마디
you have provided. So
부탁드리겠습니다.
what are some of the last words that you want to give us?
Thank you
before
very
we
much
close?
for having me. It was my first MICE travel event and an absolute pleasure. And I hope you all have an incredible day and learn a lot. So thank you.
네, 오늘 싱가포르에서
Thank you
온라인으로
very
참여해
much.
주신
That
hermione
was
조이 구글
Hermione
APAC
Joye
트래블
from
총괄님께
Google,
여러분
who joined us
큰
from
박수
Singapore
부탁드립니다.
virtually.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause to the speaker.
네, 글로벌 IT 기업 구글과
So we just had the
마이크로소프트가
opportunity
바라보는
to
마이스
hear
산업의
about
미래에
the future
관한
of the
많은
MICE
이야기를
industry
나눌
as
수
seen
있는
by Google
시간이었습니다.
and Microsoft.
코로나 시대 디지털 혁신 기술이 마이스
Digital
산업에
innovative
어떤
technologies in
영향을
a
미칠지
COVID
또 어떤
world would
변화를
impact the
가져올지
MICE industry,
많은
and
것을
we were
배울 수
able to
있는
better understand the
시간이었다고
different
생각이
changes and
듭니다.
the impact
네, 그러면 저희가
of
지금
this
잠시
industry by
휴식 시간을
technology. We'll now
갖고
take a short break,
3시
and we'll meet you
31분부터
back
제2세션을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 또 온라인으로 보고
the
계시는
next
시청자
session.
여러분께서도요. 잠시 휴식 시간을 취하시고
I hope
제2세션에서
you will
다시
enjoy your break,
인사드리도록
and we will meet you
하겠습니다.
back in the second
감사합니다.
session. Thank you. Let me make a brief housekeeping